If you know what's good for you, you'll follow us on Rumble.
Okay, let's do it. And we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm Alison. This is Maintaining Frame. Did you know that the real manosphere is trans? Where we're going to be looking at
sorry, I giggled.
Yeah, no, it's fine. You're allowed.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Keep going.
We're going to be looking at a video. What is this video called?
No, it's literally
from the Battle of Ideas. The Real Manosphere is Trans by Julia Long. She's part of a broader panel. She is a lesbian separatist feminist that is going to make the case for like why the manosphere is actually trans. So yeah, I saw there was an echo. I killed it. It's okay now. Yeah.
It's the tranosphere. It's not. Well, that probably won't advantage men any, though. Be honest.
No, I don't imagine that men trying to live as women is going to make their lives better. But it will take something from women, according to this woman. So.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, honestly, like the Radfems, because I presume as a lesbian separatist, she is firmly in the Radfem category of being. I think it's a safe assumption.
Yeah. I won't.
Yeah. So red stockings. Actually, I mean, all feminism derives from red stockings. The only difference is that the red stockings, the Radfems, say that men oppressing women is an innate drive to men. So men have a biological drive to oppress women. And the other feminists said, no, we're going to use the universality, the universality of the allegation that men have a biological instinct to oppress women, because we want to apply this to all men, right? But we are going to pretend like we can derive this from socialization, which they attempted to do and failed multiple times. So this is not actually derivable from socialization. But they don't want to answer for the bioessentialism of saying that half the human race is a bunch of orcs. So they just call it socialized, and they can't explain how men are socialized cross culture, cross ethnicity, cross religious lines. They can't explain that. They've never identified this particular form of socialization. And in fact, they abandoned all of the attempts to identify the particular form of socialization and then just went into standpoint theory and said, women feel it, therefore it's true. And there we are. Bob's your uncle. So the only difference between a Radfem and what people call the good feminists, I suppose, is that the good feminists pretend they're talking about socialization when they're actually referring to something that could only be biological because of how ubiquitous it is. And it is, in fact, derived from a biological assertion that Radfems made, that men have some kind of oppression gene, all of them, right?
Yeah.
So, and of course, when you take it from the realm of biology and put it into socialization, then all kinds of things open up for you because you gain control and potentially government grants, corporate grants to change the socialization that supposedly results in men's desire to oppress women, which is because you can't identify it anywhere, it could be everywhere, which means this is an endless make work project for the so-called good feminists who still believe that men oppress women and that although this isn't biological, it might as well be. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's the difference between the Radfems and the other feminists. Okay, that's it. That's it, guys. The only thing that's different is that they've created a fig leaf about socialization, which conveniently justifies why they get to poke their noses and their fingers into everything. So anyway, okay, so just consider that while we are going through this attempt by a Radfem to equate the manosphere with the transosphere. That sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? All right. So if you at any point throughout the show you want to actually comment, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Very best way for you to send us a tip, and the best way for you to send a tip or a comment with that tip, because you avoid YouTube's comment enhancement system. And by that, I mean censorship. And if you would like to support the show and our laser-like focus on feminism and the relationship between men and women, because that's what it all comes down to, then go to feedthebadger.com/support and throw a few shekels in the hat. That's feedthebadger.com/support. And if you want to join us in our community, that's badgernation.online. All of this is in the low bar. Select your option. Enjoy it, I guess, by clicking on it and enjoying the resultant activities that result from that. All right, let's just begin.
All right. I did get a super chat from Richard Bier like last night that Hannah did not read. So I feel like I should read it, but because if I could tag it, but I mean, by the time next Thursday rolls around, Hannah might forget. I don't know, or like not see it. But
okay,
I mean, we can just get into the video if you want. It's very not relevant. So
yeah, let's wait until other people have put their super chows in, because it's not not relevant. Like, we're just immediately digressing, which we already are. But let's not make it worse. Yeah.
All right, we're just going to watch this video straight through. It's not very long. So this is the real manosphere is trans, Julia Long. Oh, wait, hold on.
Okay, what's up?
Okay. You know, it's okay. It's okay. All right, here we go.
Well, I was originally invited to be on this panel, actually. I was given a choice between this and another. And as a lesbian feminist, I tend not to spend too much of my time actually thinking or talking about men. And I had a bit of an aversion
I'm going to stop you here. I mean, really, if you took men out of the entire conversation for lesbian feminists, what would be left aside from beating your girlfriend? Really?
She doesn't really want to talk about or think about men, but she does want to use everything that men has built, like that studio, that microphone, the internet. Maybe the clothes she's wearing was made by women in like a Chinese, sweatshop somewhere. But aside from those hardworking ladies, I think that most of what you have is thanks to men. But okay, sure, let's just pretend like they're completely. Like, oh my God, do I have to do this? Well, I guess I'll have to make the case for it, even though I really don't want anything to do with these people. I do want to benefit from what they've made, but I don't want to talk about them.
And yet I am about to talk about them at length.
Yes, she was
and
asked
conjecture
to talk about them,
on their natures. This is what's astounding to me. She's essentially a direct inheritor of the Red Stockings. Didn't even bother with the fig leaf of socialization. So this woman, as a radical separatist lesbian, believes that men have a biological bent, a biological urge or instinct to oppress women. It's rooted in their biology. So right out the gate, she has demonized half the human race. Coincidentally, the half that makes it possible for her to demonize them. And so that's where she's coming from, just right off the bat. Now, the basis for her conjecture that men instinctively want to oppress women is, of course, women's feeling from the late 60s, the early 70s, that they were oppressed. And I just want to situate everybody, get everybody back into that area of time when the American economy was so prosperous, men could afford to give women, their women, the luxury of staying at home and not having to work. So they gave them the freedom from work, right? So I just want you to imagine that. These women, who were, as Betty Friedan, had a problem with no name, which actually does have a name, it's called boredom, which is 100% a them problem. If you're bored, it's a you problem. Go get a library card. Go learn go learn cooking, or if you don't want to do that feminine stuff, go learn philosophy or something. Add to the human race in some capacity. But don't sit in your house enjoying leisure time that is paid for by your husband's wage, get bored, and then call that boredom oppression. So that's where we're at. because these women were bored, they felt resentful because they didn't have a purpose like men did. So they defined that resentment as oppression. Okay? And because they had a feeling of resentment, and they define that as oppression, that is all the evidence that they need at the end of the day to prove that men have an inborn instinct to oppress women. So I just want to lay out that entire sequence. Housewives having leisure time because the prosperity of the American economy, leisure time purchased by their husband's work, okay? They got bored. They felt resentful. And then there's another little wrinkle because they were feeling a little guilty because of the civil rights movement. So they didn't want to feel guilty anymore. So how do you do that? Well, we're oppressed too. We're even more oppressed than you are because we're women. Right? We're sitting here, we're bored, we have a washing machine, we have a dishwasher, we got soaps. We don't know what to do with our time. We're oppressed. And then they constructed this entire thing and justified all of it, their conclusion that they were oppressed based on their feelings of resentment. That's it. That is the entirety of their evidence base for the assertion, this woman's assertion, that men have an instinct to oppress women. Right? And they trotted into academia to explain. Like they literally say, the feeling comes first, then the theory, then the action. So they trotted into academia to find a theory to explain their feelings of resentment as a result of being bored. And then all of academic feminism came out of that. And academic feminism is like the exact negative space of the Red Stockings Manifesto, right? Except they abandoned the whole idea that it was biology that made men oppress women. No, now it's just socialization. We can't identify it anywhere. It might be the patriarchy fairy that just taps a penis person on the head when he's like 3 months old and that's it. He's done for. Who knows? They've never even bothered to try to define that. But all of this starts with these women who are the most privileged class in human history being bored. And that's it. And now we have to listen to this academician tell us all about how horrible men are based on women's feelings of boredom 50 years ago. And again, like no evidence. Because they kept trying to find, like, you know, the Marxist material dialectic. What does it look for? It looks for benefit. The Marxist feminists kept trying to find benefit for men in the relationship between a man and his housewife, his house concubine. And they couldn't identify it anywhere. They're like, well, I mean, according to the material dialectic, she's getting the benefit, but that can't be the case. We have a feeling of resentment that we need to justify through a theory, so we can't. So they kept trying to derive where the benefit was coming from for men, and then they just gave up and said it's a secret benefit, and we know it's there because standpoint theory. The more I read this, the more I'm astounded that this nest of fallacies and crackpot bullshit became how we define the relationship between men and women as a society. And then here we are. This woman has a platform to talk about how, as a Radfem, she doesn't want to talk about men, but nevertheless, she's going to avail us about her opinion of men, to which men can't respond. And this is the interesting thing. All of this is based on women's emotions. Do men's emotions get a moment? Like, how do men feel about being defined as being oppressors? Either because of biology, you just have an innate oppression gene, or because of some form of socialization that you do to each other, mysteriously and secretly, that we can't identify and you can never actually repent of. You can never stop, guys. You're always guilty. Always. But that's not biological. It's not a biological thing. It's just socialization we can't identify.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, should I play more?
Get moving. Yeah, we probably should.
Okay.
I should let you talk too.
Was it not playing now?
No, I can hear it.
Oh, I see. No, it's okay. I see the issue here. Give me a second. I had to alter the audio settings and I need to correct it. So this is what I'm gonna do. Okay, hold on.
All right.
All right.
Oh boy.
Here we go.
The previous talks, all very eloquent and erudite, I was reminded of exactly why I had been rather reluctant to add my voice to this. But anyway, here I am, so I will say what I've got to say.
So she didn't want to talk about this topic because it's got something to do with men. Just pointing out that she was like reluctant to even get involved.
Yeah,
That's how
bullshit.
little she cares about this. Although she probably, let's be honest, she probably got paid pretty well, because that's the thing with these feminists, academics. They get paid a lot to make appearances and spout their nonsense, and they get paid pretty well too. So anyway.
I too have a certain sympathy for the idea of single-sex spaces and for men's single-sex spaces. I think men have given us a very good role model of how to create single-sex spaces, seeing as they set up religious institutions, educational institutions, universities, whole parliamentary systems, totally excluding women.
So men have
Totally.
created, yeah, they totally exclude. Isn't it the case that like the parliament right now in England is the first time in history 50-50 representation, because the new Labour Party guy said, I want representation, because Keir Starmer, yes, that Keir Starmer apparently was too sexist and did not give enough women power to destroy the country. And so now they've done it so that it's a balance of power to destroy the country. Like we have men and women doing it together, hand in hand. Kumbaya. But again, it's because men created it anyway. That's the problem, according to her. So,
Yeah, not women's choices, of course. It's always men.
No.
And it's not the case that men take the risks and make the sacrifices to create something of worth. And then when it's feasible, women are onboarded, which is actually more accurate to what's going on. Right. So if, for example, the university system didn't always confer benefit, it probably doesn't anymore, but it didn't always confer benefit. It was sort of a new thing. It wasn't necessarily respected. So men had to make the effort to create the value proposition of the universities. Right. And they took the risks to their reputations, to, their lives and their careers. And then they built this institution, or this like a network of institutions. And then when it was more valuable to be a part of it, then it required sacrifice. So when the cost benefit analysis favored being, the institutions giving to the people who were part of it, you got status, you got an increased wage from getting a degree. Then women started to, poke their heads up and say, hey, we want in. And then they got in. Same thing with the credit system. Men took the risks. They built it out. And then when there was more benefit to being involved in it than there was sacrifice, women popped up and said, hey, why did you exclude us?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were excluded because you didn't want to take the risks or make the sacrifices. And this is the irony of what this woman is saying. These things wouldn't exist without the very nature that she considers to be inferior to her own.
Yeah.
And she is a supremacist.
Oh, of course.
And she justifies it because men build things. And while they're building things, while things are dangerous and uncomfortable and require more sacrifice than you get out, women aren't involved. Right? So if men opened up a frontier on Venus, and in order to build on Venus, a man died every week, or you died within a week, and the only people we would send are people we find expendable to begin with. So we all send men, and men manage through a century of sacrifice, having their faces melted by acid to build an environment on Venus that can support human life. And then suddenly women are going to say, hey, you excluded us from the patriarchy kept us from Venus, from the surface of Venus. You guys were unfair in excluding us. It's like, no, that's not how it works. And I am not excusing treating men as disposable, and disposable, right? It's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that men take the risks, they make the sacrifices, they build something that's amenable to human life, right? A colony, or to investment in terms of like an industry or a institution. And then when the sacrifices are made and the risks are taken and everything stabilizes and it becomes more beneficial to take part than sacrificial, women say, oh, you excluded us. That needs to stop. Or that seriously needs to stop.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that these Radfems, they will allow for biological differences when they're demonizing men, but she won't allow for the possibility that men's biological differences are why these things get built by men in the first place. See, so it's very selective, and it's all based on her emotions. She has a feeling of resentment towards men. Therefore, men must be oppressing her. Therefore, it must be a biological feature of men that they want to oppress women. But it can't possibly be a biological feature of men that they want to build things for other people's comfort and safety. Even though manifestly, men are doing more of one than the other. I just want to point that out. It's very convenient what is explained by biology in her philosophy. Okay, let's keep going.
Lynching Acers says feminism is Marxism with extra parts and emotional breakdowns for $5. I'll let you go ahead and rant on that if you want to.
Well, you know me well.
I do.
Okay. Feminism is Marxism with extra parts. Actually, feminism is what they did is they tried to use Marxism to derive the benefit that men get from earning a wage to support a housewife, basically. And they failed. So they broke Marxism down for parts, and they appended them to their stereotype of what men are. They essentially took the Marxist approach to, or definition of the capitalist, and applied it to men, even though they couldn't derive the relationship. They couldn't figure out how the relationship between the capitalist and labor applied to men and women. They couldn't actually derive it because they couldn't find the benefit that men get that is equivalent to the capitalist from labor, right? So they just broke it all down for parts. They said, we don't need to, we're women. We have women's ways of knowing, standpoint theory. So they took Marx, they removed even the Marxist expectation of any kind of evidence, right? They're like, yeah, we don't need to do that. We don't even need to live up to the Marxist expectation of evidence, guys. But we'll keep all the condemnation of the capitalist as an extractor, as somebody who oppresses and destroys the life of labor. And we will apply that to men and men's behavior towards women with no evidence. This is a key, guys. I want no evidence, not a single shred of freaking evidence for this assertion, except for, of course, women's ways of knowing. They feel oppressed, therefore they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so feminism isn't Marxism with extra steps. Feminism is just basically taking out the capitalist, slotting in men with even less evidence than Marx had for his theories, and then becoming a trillion-dollar industry with government grants and corporate departments and influence over men's health and policies towards families. So family law and divorce law and child custody, and also services for people who experience domestic violence and sexual assault. And also developmental banks. Like, it's a gigantic industry. So, and it all derived from a bunch of bored housewives saying that their boredom was oppression. And then a bunch of radical feminists saying, oh yeah, that's because men have an instinct to oppress. And then a bunch of Marxist feminists saying, we can't derive that from Marxism. Well, then we'll just use standpoint theory. And it's socialization. How? We don't know. It's all men, but it's socialization.
Mm-hmm.
It is, like I said, it is a cluster cluck of bullshit. Okay. But it's not Marxism with extra steps. It's like Marxism hollowed out and just with everything, like making it worse. And then just women, and it only applies to women, which is why whenever you say to anybody on the left who says, oh, I'm a Marxist, well, what about helping men? We could use some government programs helping men. And then immediately their face squeezes into like they just sucked on a lemon. And they say, men, well, they can just bootstrap themselves. Yeah, they don't deserve anything. They're men. They should just be able to do it themselves. If they're weak, they should just go die in a ditch. Like immediately they become the caricature that they have of a conservative. As soon as you say, hey, why don't we help men? Everybody on the left and every so-called communist suddenly becomes the most dyed-in-the-wool conservative bootstrapper stereotype. Just pointing that out. Okay, let's
all right, back to the video.
Listen to some more.
Oh, I think you've shown a certain expertise in that department, and I'm not going to necessarily break my heart thinking about further single-sex bases for you. Obviously, and you've managed to do that, pretty well for yourselves for some centuries now. With only a relatively recent, historically speaking, only relatively recent access to those faces for women and for women's voices to be heard in the public domain. Women's single-sex spaces have either been enforced, as we've seen in some cultures, or have where we've chosen to create them have been, as we've seen in the last sort of 10, 15 years, have been absolutely under siege. When I was trying to...
Okay, I'm pausing it there. She said, okay, women's spaces have been under siege. So I'm guessing that this means by...
Trans women.
Yes, by trans women, of course, yes. And that's a problem. That's why she's speaking out right now, right?
Yes, of course that's why she's speaking out. And it's interesting how it's just the last 10 to 15 years. So she admits that women have dismantled men's spaces over, the last 50 years, supposedly because women didn't have their own space, but they did. They had domestic spheres, and it wasn't enforced on them because throughout all of human history, you can find women who exited the domestic sphere and did other stuff besides that. You can see nuns, you can see doctors in like the 12th century. Like this has always been a case that women could actually, if they had the chops and they decided not to not subject themselves, but not do the childbirth thing and the nursing thing that sort of limits women's movement. And really, that's the reason why they were so-called restricted to the domestic sphere, because it's extremely difficult to go a crusading when you're nursing a child. It's extremely difficult to sail down around the Cape of, like, the Horn of Africa when you're pregnant, right? These are difficult things for women to do. Hell, it's really difficult for them to even plow a field while they have morning sickness. So these things limited them to what they were physically capable of, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the legal capacity. That's not going to change anything. And once you get into this idea that it was the legal situation that actually enforced things on women, not their biological situation, you sort of get into the same realm, which is interesting why she's upset at the trans women. You get into the same realm. Have you ever watched Life of Brian?
I did see it once.
Yeah. You remember the scene where Loretta and then the female radical Judeans people front, and they're all discussing policy, and Loretta's like, I want to have the right to have babies, and Loretta's a trans woman, right? And then the other dude's like, you don't have a uterus, where are you going to gestate it, in a box? And then the woman who's part of the Judean front, like the actual biological woman, says, well, we can't she can't gestate because she doesn't have a womb, but we can still advocate for her right to gestate, her right to give birth, even though she doesn't have the ability to do so. That is exactly the same thing that this woman is doing when she looks back in history and she says, oh, women were oppressed by patriarchy. No, you weren't, right? Any more than Loretta was oppressed because she didn't have the legal right to gestate a fetus she didn't have a uterus for. You were quote unquote oppressed by your biology. Okay? I don't think oppressed is really the right word, but you are limited by your biology, ladies. You are not going to be going out and doing the kind of strenuous activity that men could do, like sailing, long journeys, etc., etc. That's not going to happen for you. And if you were able to do it, you would have to renunciate becoming mothers, because you couldn't do both, because it's just too arduous, unless you were Sacagawea. But that's another question with the Lewis and Clark expedition. But that's you have to be pretty tough. But anyway, the point is that it wasn't law that limited women from these positions. It was their biology, just like it's not law that limits Loretta from the life of Brian from gestating a fetus. It's the fact that she is a he, and he does not have a womb. So when this woman starts yapping about trans, and realize that she opened the door on thinking that the limitations on women weren't biological, they were actually legal. Like they were literally legal, rather than legal enshrining biological limitations and thus making men responsible for ameliorating or lessening those biological limitations that women have. Because that's what you see when you look at the laws and what they're actually doing. They aren't limiting women. Biology is limiting women. What they're doing is making men responsible for making those limitations less arduous for women. So when women can't take the merchant caravan to the east for spices, right? When they can't do that, then the man is responsible for taking the money that he makes doing that and supporting his female relatives, including his wife. And that's what's in law. That's what the law is about. The law is placing obligations on men as a result of women's physical limitations. The law has nothing to do with the limitations or why they exist. All right? So and like I said, it's just absurd listening to this woman, because she's making the same argument as the trans woman Loretta, arguing that she should have the right to give birth. No, because you can't do these things. Right? And the only reason you're even having this conversation at this point in time in human history is because men have, through their innovations, made a lot of these activities accessible to women for the first time in human history. And it's not just birth control, it's power steering, it's climate control in cars, right? It's plumbing that allows for bathrooms everywhere. So women aren't restricted to staying home because they have nowhere to go to the bathroom. And that wasn't a oppression that men did into our women in the past. We just didn't have the means, the material capacity of the industry to create bathrooms everywhere. Now we do. And that's liberated women. So so-called liberation of women is once again has nothing to do with men's intentions, legal or otherwise, and has everything to do with men making the effort to minimize those limitations and their effect on the women in their lives and their cultures and communities. And then she has the freaking audacity to blame men. And again, this is all based on an emotion. Everything that comes out of her mouth is not sourced. There is no empirical evidence behind it. It's all based on a bunch of women 50 years ago feeling bored and then translating that into resentment, and from resentment into oppression. And that's it. She's got nothing behind any of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We got 2 super chats. I'm going to read them really quick. Dylan, 102001 or 10-2001, whatever, gives us $5 and says, I think it's more than bored housewife. I think a lot of battered women added a lot of hate to the movement. The personal is political.
Nah. That gives them, I wanted to address this with a comment. These women are not upset because bad men did things. If they were, if that really was the driver, then feminists wouldn't be screwing around with batter intervention programs like they are with the Duluth model. And what I mean by that is the Duluth model is either, okay, let me explain the Duluth model for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. The Duluth model is the feminist intimate partner batterer intervention. Right, so it's the model for how domestic violence happens, and there are intervention programs based on it, and it basically tells the man that he needs to repent of his desire to dominate women, basically. Okay, that intervention is no better than no intervention in terms of reducing recidivism among male intimate partner batterers. So if you did nothing, you would get exactly the same result. In fact, in some cases, you would get a better result than interventions based on the Duluth model. And what's happening now is there are interventions based on the, it's called ACT TV, ACTV, and it is actualizing your values. So what they will do is they'll take a man who is having difficulty controlling his temper in the context of domestic violence, and they will try to give him the skills to bring his behavior in line with his values. And incidentally, this works. It works considerably better than the Duluth model, and it works better than no intervention. So what they're doing is they are assuming when he comes into the program that he doesn't want to batter, that he doesn't want to engage in this kind of violent behavior towards his female partner. And they're trying to give him the skills to prevent that. And it's effective. It's far more effective than the Duluth model telling him to repent of his desire to dominate his female partner. Because the problem with that is even men who are physically, like engaged in physical violence with their female partners don't actually have those values. They don't want to be doing this. Men don't want to beat women. Okay? They don't want to be doing it. And the interventions that recognize that and say, hey, we're going to figure out how to close that gap and get your behavior concordant with your values, they see results. The feminist ones do not. And yet the feminists keep pushing the feminist interventions that provide no value. So they are actually creating a situation where women are more likely to be battered because they prefer to advance feminist conjecture over women's safety. All right, at that point, I think it's extending a lot of good faith to say that these women are motivated by concern or the experience of being domestically abused. Sorry, if you're willing to sacrifice women who are experiencing domestic abuse because you prefer to advance your theory, you don't get to claim that as a shield for your behavior and your ideology. I think that's overstated. I think people need to stop saying that these women are motivated by bad husbands, bad fathers, be experiencing domestic violence. That's not what's motivating them. What's motivating them is that they can do it. These are dark tetrad women, dark triad women. They are sociopaths. They have intrasexually, they're engaging in not just aggression towards men, but intrasexual competition with other women. They are not motivated by anything. Like, men experience domestic violence from women. They haven't constructed this entire $1 trillion framework, this entire institution about how I don't know, women have a biological urge to dominate men. I mean, so I think some people might entertain that occasionally, but there's no institution that's shrined it into some kind of policy and orthodoxy, right? So why should women get that excuse? Like, men experience sexual violence from women. They haven't constructed stigmatizing freshman orientations that make women feel like shit about themselves, or an entire edifice of injustice in which women can't respond to any man who accuses them of sexual assault. Right? Men haven't done that. Men experience everything that women do. They experience being beaten. They experience being raped by women. And they have not responded in this way. So why is that an excuse for women? Okay.
Okay. Back
you
to
want to
this
add
thing.
anything to that? Okay. Yeah, sure.
Well, I think you're saying plenty. Okay.
Myself and some other feminists.
Is there sound coming out? Can you guys hear that? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear it. I can hear it.
Okay. Just checking.
Other activists tried to have a women-only conference in 2012. I don't know if anyone here was around for that. It was really before all the whole sort of head of steam around transgenders had really got going. But we thought it was very important to have our own space at that point, and we were absolutely hounded. We were completely besieged by these entitled men who were called.
Again, these women who we're supposed to extend sympathy for believe that men oppress women. They have this is the rad feminists, the gender critical feminists. They believe that men oppress women, right? And it's a biological factor of men. And they have put this into institution. This has become enshrined in how we treat men in the mental health field. And this individual has the audacity to be upset that the chickens have come home to roost. Right? They didn't even allow men to define themselves. Like, literally, she's part of an ideological institution that does not allow men to define who they are and what they value. That's defined for them by this woman's beliefs and stereotypes about men and resentment of men. So men are even allowed to have their own space in their own heads because of women like this. And now she's upset that the trans women, you know, Loretta wants to have the right to take part in a woman's convention. Literally, this woman feels like she has the right to define men's own reality for them. Like, we're not even talking about taking over men's space. She's taking over the right to define how men experience the world and what they are as men. She defines that for you guys. You don't even have space in your own head that she doesn't have a right to. And then she's turning around and she's upset over the trans women. Okay, well, I have the smallest violin here. And it is playing for you. All right.
Calling us, you know, Nazis. This was all, well over 10 years ago now. Nazis. It was a hate rally. It was a hate fest. All the rest of it. The venue pulled.
Yeah, it'd suck if people started calling you Nazi and chasing you down someplace, wouldn't it? Gosh, I hope that doesn't happen to anybody in our present time being called a Nazi without like
unfairly
seeing if it actually qualifies. Yeah, being a little bit hyperbolic. I wonder if that led. Did you get punched by any chance for being called this thing, or was it just kind of rude?
Pretty much no one was on our side at that point. So that's the kind of thing that happens. I think it's.
Yeah, I doubt that. Nobody was on our side. Shut up.
I highly doubt it.
Yeah. Dylan also gave us $2 and says Aaron Pitsy talked about that. I don't know what the context is, but something you were ranting earlier. So, okay.
It's very interesting what happens when women try to set a boundary. When we say no, in all kinds of contexts, that's when we tend to reveal often a huge personal risk to ourselves, the actual level of woman hatred that we are living with. And that's certainly what happened there. On that topic.
Oh, so wait a second. Yeah, you probably were around for the 70s, right? That wasn't the level, like that wasn't where the ultimate woman hatred was. That was the moment that you guys asserted that men providing for their women was oppression. Was that not the ultimate oppression? I mean, this is what kicked it all off. I don't recall the Red Stockings saying that trans women gate crashing their conferences was the ultimate oppression. Pretty sure they situated that between the relationship between men and women. Are you disavowing that now? That isn't actually the ultimate form of oppression? The site of female oppression isn't heterosexuality? Okay.
It's whatever she needs it to be
in the moment,
at the time, in the moment, yes.
Obviously, we're supposed to be talking about the manosphere. Some of you probably would be aware that Laura Bates has fairly recently written a book about the manosphere called Men Who Hate.
Oh, Laura Bates.
And I just thought, oh.
Yeah, she's invoking Laura Bates. Yeah.
The woman
Her
with
buddy.
a very unsavory interest in middle school boys. If a man expressed that much strange behavior towards middle school girls, no one would give him the benefit of the doubt. But we all give Laura Bates the benefit of the doubt. All right.
Here we go. I went on a bit of a nostalgia trip because 50 years ago, Andrea Dworkin wrote this book called Woman Hating. So very, very similar title and, different decades, different.
Oh, so now she's invoking Andrea Dworkin. So she's saying Andrea Dworkin wrote a book that's very similar to the one Laura Bates wrote more recently. Just laying out in case you guys missed that. You guys don't know? Do you guys know who Andrea Dworkin is? She's
I certainly do.
She's one of the OG Radfems of the 60s and 70s that basically thought all sex is rape, I believe. Men are very big anti-male stuff. She was anti-porn. She was a very sex negative feminist. By the way, she's also the sex negative feminists are always arguing with the sex positive feminists. And a lot of normies think the sex positive feminists are on their side. Don't do that. That's stupid. There's more to the conversation than that. So anyway, she's one of the sex negative Andrea Dworkin, political lesbian types. And I guess Laura Bates is also she's a big fan of her as well. So
different format. But I think the reality of woman hatred, of what it can be denied. I guess by my fellow panelists. But I think women who've tried to say no are aware of the level of women hatred. So while I agree with Joanna there that it often comes in drag, and some of the violence, the threats, the actual physical violence, and also the verbal, the nature of the misogynist abuse that we've been on the receiving end from men in dresses has just been some of the worst abuse that I've ever seen.
Okay, so let's give us some context again. She's part of an ideological inheritance that literally says that men are biologically, instinctively, they oppress women. There's no evidence for this. There never has been presented any evidence for this. This became institutional law and policy. It was the only difference between her and the so-called non-radical feminists is the non-radical feminists believe that men also oppress women, and they do, and the desire to oppress women as ubiquitous as a biological urge, but something socialization, which has always been actually the only thing that's done has made it more useful for them to argue that they should have right to control law and policy and basically law and policy and procedures and freshman intake. So basically have more control over institutions and how institutions conduct themselves. But anyway, this is her attitude. That's what she believes about men. And again, never empirically proven. None of this is. It's just based on an emotion. And
Yep.
she has the audacity to say that hatred of women is prevalent, or even that the men in dresses, is what she calls them, are expressing hatred of women. Right? Have these men in dresses told you that you don't have the right to identify as a woman, lady? Because that's basic. That is the end result of your entire ideology when it is targeted at men. The psychology of men and masculinities field. That is the end result. And what is the end result? Men need to renunciate their masculinity, and they need to repent of their sin of being men, and they need to stop identifying with being a man and identifying with their masculinity, or at least identifying with a masculinity that they share with other men. Right? They cannot recognize that they have a category named man that has its own particular epistemology, shall we say, a particular set of behaviors, approaches, orientations, etc. That is masculinity. Right? You have to repent of that. And then she has the audacity, having set all of this in motion, that culminates in men being forced, or at least ambiently coerced, shall we say, stochastic coercion, into renunciating their masculinity, into destroying their relationships with other men, the spaces where they can express how they relate and how they bond. She has pushed all of that in motion. And then when the inevitable happens, that those men, some of those men who have been forced or compelled or coerced their entire life to renunciate themselves, finally realize, hey, wait, I can get this weight off my back, this albatross from around my neck, by identifying as a woman. Wow, suddenly I no longer have to feel like I am an orc. And it doesn't matter if I look like one, because once I enter this category of not a man and openly identifying as not a man, this woman's pressure, this boot that she put on the neck of all men, that the ideology that she signs off on, puts on the boot on the neck of all men, is suddenly gone. It's suddenly gone. You're free. You no longer have to feel like you're the source of all evil in the world, all oppression, all destruction, all hatred, all sexual violence. You suddenly no longer have to be beholden to women like this. You know what? You created this enemy. You created this monster, lady. Enjoy. I feel like this is something like what is that word, that K word, karma?
Karma?
Karma. Right? Poetic irony.
Is that what? Yeah. I know what you. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's
karma.
I see what you mean. Yeah, it's karma. It's
karma.
Yep. All right.
It's karma.
Shall I?
Continue.
Yeah, it's karma.
That informs that, but it's not a million miles away from a global online porn industry to which men have free access. It's, as I say, it's global in scale. It's hugely.
Wait, what is that? Wait, what? What does that have to do? How do we get to porn? Or what? That's got like what? Okay. Let me just go back. I just want to hear the context again. Yes.
Okay. I go back, but it's not an argument as you understand it, with facts and logical progression.
No, I know.
Empirical.
I know.
It is a statement of position. We are now in the position of stating how awful men are in order to construct a narrative around them. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And porn is one part of that narrative. That's one coordinate on the narrative of men being awful.
Yeah. I think I have. Look, I don't know this for sure. I'm just going to speculate on this. I think this woman, Julia Long, was completely unprepared or didn't prepare for this talk, and was just like, I don't have any material. I didn't do any research. what are you going to do? Well, I'll just bring this Andrea Dworkin book and just rant about women being victims for my whole time. And then I'm sure I'll just basically, I'm not going to talk about the topic per se. I'm going to attack men, and then I'm going to end it in a way that gets an applause from the audience, and that'll be enough. And I'll get paid. Because she hasn't said anything of substance yet. And it's been already, like, this is more than halfway over. So, okay. So I want to hear this thing about porn because it kind of came out of nowhere.
Miles away from a global online porn industry to which men have free access. It's, as I say, it's global in scale. It's hugely profitable. And if we're thinking about what's happening with boys in schools, what we are now reaping the consequences of is an online porn industry which has been allowed to just expand and expand. And actually, maybe unlike some of the panelists, I spent 3 months in the school last year, and what I observed actually is it really does bear out. It was a secondary school, but it bears out a lot of the things that we've been seeing in
disgusting
other reports.
Disgusting. Again, she's part of an ideological tradition that believes that boys are little monsters who are instinctually primed to oppress women. That's what's, UK parents, that's what you're allowing around your boys.
Laura Bates.
Yeah, Laura Bates and this woman. I mean, I can't, honestly, she's just going to be what she is. You can't expect a leopard to change its spots. But the fact that UK parents allow this kind of slime around their boys astounds me. And they haven't rose up in arms. They're just allowing it to happen. That's just okay. Right? And then they're just baffled why there's, I don't know how the pornography industry gets into this. Okay, I'm confused.
I think she's just saying buzzwords to get cheers. It reminds me of this scene from Family Guy. I want to show it to you really quick.
Mrs. Grimm, what do you plan to do about crime in our city?
A lot. Because that's what Jesus wants. 9/11 was bad.
I agree with that. What are your plans for cleaning up our environment?
9/11.
So I think that's it. That's as prepared as she is. She just says, let me see. Men wearing dresses, women's oppression, men have forced themselves into our spaces, porn exists, Andrea Dworkin, Laura Bates, what else? And that's all it is. Like there's no substance to this. There's no substance to this. Anyway.
The level of familiarity, the nature of the kind of abuse, the jokes, it's not always like direct abuse, but the kind of like the jokes and these kinds of things that are being that are circulating in schools absolutely reflects what I find a quite terrifying familiarity with the most kind of grotesque and misogynist online pornography. So I think when we're looking at, we can look at the manosphere and talk about that. And according to
middle school boys. Okay.
Yeah, again, I thought this was about trans women. They're not talking about
trans
women.
not just that. Why are you
and the manosphere and Andrew Tate
in what context is this woman listening to middle school boys talk about sexuality not creepy as fuck?
Yeah.
Right? Like, these are young people trying to figure themselves out. Why are you vulturing over them, you poof? Like, why do you have such an interest in that? And why is it that nobody in the UK ever just stops and says, why are these decrepit middle-aged women vulturing over our boys?
Witches.
Right? Why are they doing? Why do we let them do that? And why do we justify all the bullshit that comes out of their mouths? Yeah, when young people are expressing themselves sexually, it's dumb. but that's because they're young, right? They're trying to figure out who they are and where they stand. Okay? And they're not getting very good information from the authorities in their lives. What do they get from the authorities in their lives? These young men, that their sexuality is toxic. Well, you know, what are you going to do with that? Yeah, don't approach women. Well, they're still going to have sexual urges. Where do they go with that?
They
Especially
can't go
when
anywhere.
it's shamed.
They can't go to
They
porn.
can't go anywhere.
They can't go to women. They can't go to prostitutes. They just got to deal with it. They just got to like
saltpeter,
balls
I
just
guess.
have to explode from like lack of usage. That's I
Yeah,
mean
they can't.
he doesn't care.
They can't even take care of it themselves because that's I don't know. It's
well, they
Harry
need something
Palms or some
to
shit.
like get it going though. They got to look at women, and they can't do that because that's the male gaze. The male gaze is bad, so no, they can't do that either. They're not allowed.
and they can't even become a woman. I don't know. Like this woman is just so hateful, and it's like the hate that she's been spewing into the world is now coming back to her. And you know what? I could argue this. I could say this is how she's wrong, but this is an object lesson in how she's wrong. Right? The trans women are giving her an object lesson in karma and how she is full of shit. And all I can say is, you go, sisters. I'm sorry, I'm probably offending a lot of tradcons, but I can't care anymore. This battle needs to happen.
What battle?
Just the battle between the trans women and these women. This woman.
Like a death battle? Because I already know who's going to win. I already know who's going to win that one. It's trans women. I'm putting all my money on the trans women. Yeah. They're just better. What are you talking about?
Believe that
there's still men on the inside.
Yeah,
what?
I can't even believe that there are conservatives or traditionalists who are partnering with women like this. Like I can't freaking believe it.
I don't know that they're. I mean, look. I think the only thing that they share in common is that they think that men are men and women are women. That doesn't necessarily follow that they believe all the other stuff too. And so I don't know. I just look. If you don't like tradcons, I get it, but I feel like we just put too much attention on that when it goes back to what I've been saying before. Okay, the worst thing that tradcons are guilty of is being blue-pilled. That's it. That's the worst offense. They're not trying to kill anybody. They're not trying to castrate people. They're just blue-pilled on men and women. That is, and I'm sorry. Like I see a lot of this shit coming out of the chat, and it really bothers me because there is like you just are not as superior to these people as you think you are. And you don't even get specific on who you're referring to when you say tradcons. Like, which ones? What are you talking about? Like, are you talking about the Daily Wire people? Guess what? They're not the fucking representatives of all traditional people everywhere. They're just a few guys on the internet that a lot of people don't like, even people on the right. So, like, well, I don't know where this is going. Like, to me, people like this are the enemy. People who actually hate men and want them like taken down, destroyed, castrated, trooned out. And yes, they will attack them after that, but they are also the ones that drive that. I think the only thing the tradcons are guilty of is, again, being blue-pilled and understanding that men are men and women are women. They're probably just as opposed to trans men as they are trans women. They just think that trans women, because they're more prominent, they get more attention, there's more on them, and there were more of them. I think the trans men are catching up now. And they're looking at it as a social problem, and I understand that, and I'm sympathetic to that, but just saying that they're the same or they're on these people's side, I don't think so. I don't. I think that they agree on this topic, and that's pretty much it. So that's not the same. And I'm not one to be like, how am I different from all of the normies out here? Let me figure out a way to like separate myself by, saying these are my beliefs. I'm better than the left because blah, blah, blah. I'm better than the right because blah, blah, blah. Too bad nobody's like me. I guess I'm all by myself on top of this mountain of awesomeness. It bothers me when people do that. Can we just like say, here's where I agree and here's where I disagree and then leave it at that? Like, I'm sorry, but like, if we're going to win, we need allies. If we're going to get allies, then we have to be able to say, here's where we agree and here's where we can work on some stuff. So I don't think they're on the same side. That's all.
I'm not saying they're on the same side. I'm not saying they're on the same side, but please do not ally with women like this.
No, I wouldn't. Although, again, I would agree that men cannot become women, but I would have that would be about the extent of my agreement. Beyond that, I think I would disagree on basically everything else, including whatever her prescriptions are for that issue, which I'm sure are just going to be absolutely disastrous for everybody, especially men. So I wouldn't agree with any of those other things.
Okay, let's listen to some more.
All right, let's listen to some more.
Is extremely disturbing. I don't think we've necessarily gone into that, but we don't even have to look that far. We look at the content of online pornography. There was a report recently from the Office of the Children's Commissioner, and they are extremely concerned at the effect that this normalization has had. Back in the
what normalization? What is she talking about, Alison? I missed. Like, where is this going?
Normalization of porn.
But what does that have to do with being trans?
I don't know.
Okay, if she were going to, let's say, because I think you could, if you did the work and the research and you had like the data, you could potentially make an argument that excessive porn consumption could lead to someone transitioning. Like that I can see that, and I know that there is some data out there that talks about this correlation. I don't know how good it is. I'm not claiming to say that it is or not. That's the only place where this could fit, but she hasn't made this argument. She hasn't said any of that. She's just like, men in dresses, porn. We're going to talk about porn now because I want to talk about, like, it's like she has something that she wanted to talk about and she's just trying to bring this over to that instead of like addressing what this is actually supposed to be about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing
I don't know. She's just moving the pieces around on the board and hoping to get some kind of check, I guess. And she's probably just going to kick him over. Let's see if she kicks over the pieces.
All right, let's see.
Actually, before we do that, wait. Let's do the super chow. That
did we get one?
No, we didn't get one. Guys, where are your super chows? Feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Get them in. You must have an opinion about this, my dudes. You must.
Yeah.
So get those opinions in. Feedthebadger.com/justthetip.
I also want to say that I've seen that there is some. It's possible, and again, I don't know for sure. It's possible that some young boys or younger men, like teenagers, that spend a lot of time on Reddit, and maybe they're gay, or they're questioning or something, and they can be pipelined in Reddit, because this is what Reddit does, into transing themselves. So I know I've seen that happen. I don't know, I'm not saying that it's a epidemic or anything like that, but I think there are places where young people who are impressionable can be railroaded into doing stuff like this. I know that this is like especially happening with young girls, but I've seen some examples of it happening with men on Reddit. So, all right. So Super Chow from Richard Pierre from yesterday. You want me to read that one?
Yeah, let's get that done.
Okay, he gave us $5 and said, okay, Lauren, there was a 737 that was lost track for 13 years while parked at an airport. Do you know how many different people responsible for paperwork it takes to lose track of a 737 at an airport? This isn't the 10mm rocket or socket that goes missing as often as socks disappear in the dryer. This was a parked 738, so I guess the plane has changed, that sat in one spot for 13 years that nobody knew who to bill parking fees to, and the owner not realizing they still owned it. And yes, it sat in one spot for 13 years. These same people also try to sell and administer health insurance. Okay. Thank you for that. Sorry, I don't have the context, but I just thought I'd read it because I don't know that Hannah will get to it. So, all right. So what now? Should we go back to it or what?
Yeah, let's just go back to it.
Okay.
They are extremely concerned at the effect that this normalization has had. You know, back in the whenever it would have been like the 1980s or 90s, if there'd been some, you know, a horrible old creep in a dirty Mac with porn videos standing outside the school gates trying to give these videos to children, he would have been arrested. But in fact, we've allowed that to happen through
Wow,
through
just
the internet, through that.
a horrible old creep vulturing around middle school boys. Jeez. I thought you were briefly describing yourself, lady, but I guess you've just invented someone to project that onto. All right, let's
okay.
So that has happened at scale. I just want to finish by saying also in terms of the reality of male violence against women, after I did that stint in a school, I was working on the MARAC.
Wait, she didn't actually make any arguments about male violence against women. She just said Laura Bates wrote a book and Andrea Dworkin wrote a book, and they have similar titles. She didn't demonstrate anything. She's like, and now that I've effectively dazzled you with my words, allow me to close out 9/11.
I'm
sorry.
I want to tell you, the whole thing is bullshit all the way down. Everything that comes out of her mouth, there's no argument, there's no logic, and there's no evidence. I have looked for it. It never existed. Feminism was never justified or legitimate. If you're looking for an actual objective truth, don't look here. It has none. There is no foundation, no actual objective empirical foundation. They just had a feeling. Then they went groping for a conjecture or a hypothesis or a theory to justify that feeling or to explain that feeling. And that's where it all came from. That's it, guys. That is it.
Yep.
Like literally, this is a shower thought. This entire movement was a shower thought. And then a whole bunch of women just got up their own asses with this sharing this shower thought. And now here we are on the tail end of this.
Yep. Millions of abortions.
Consequences.
Trillions of dollars later. Yeah.
This metastasized shower thought.
Billions later.
This metastasized shower thought this is what we're dealing with.
Yep. Okay.
Which is MARAC. I spent a year on that MARAC, the multi-agency risk assessment conferences. Those MARACs are where the different agencies like police and health and support agencies all come together when somebody has been found to be at risk, not just at risk of domestic violence, but at risk of hospitalization or death through domestic violence. And I would say well over 90% of those were male perpetrators and female victims. So I think we do need to take a bit of a reality check, look at what's happening, within the culture.
So some of these MARAC statistics that showed over 90% of victims of domestic violence were women and
hospitalized. Okay,
well,
here's the problem
including hospitalized. And she said including hospitalized.
Yeah, well, that's just bullshit. I mean,
there's also
the UK,
it's also risk assessment too. Like, so I guess there's like women that are in danger or claim to be in danger of being beaten also counts. So that could be like the majority of the number. Do you want to look that up?
No, I don't need to. It's the UK statistics. They're completely cooked. They're feminist statistics.
Oh,
but if you if you actually look at the stats, unilateral domestic violence, that is one party hitting the other and the other party does nothing, 70% of that is female on male. Okay, 30% is male on female. And then the rest is mutual violence. And that's about 50% of all domestic violence. And it's the mutual violence that actually ends up with the highest degree of injury of women, because the women escalate. And also, with mutual violence, it's usually the woman throwing the first punch. And feminists will make a whole song and dance, but again, this is just the same kind of, oh, I have a feeling. It's not actually based on any kind of facts or logic or sound argument. They will make the argument that men are somehow responsible for the violence being done to them because they instigate it somehow. Right. So even though feminists will call out anyone saying that, what did you do to make him hit you? Their entire movement has enshrined into law and policy. What did you do to make her hit you? How's that for a double standard? But anyway, the vast majority, or the significant majority of one-sided domestic violence is female perpetrated on men. Now, the situation is that women are more likely to be injured, and potentially they're more likely to die of their injuries. Now, why is that? It is because men are bigger and stronger. And when you have an escalating mutual violence situation, things get out of control. Okay? What is the solution to that? Nobody hits anybody. And once the hitting starts, you should probably go and learn some skills for de-escalation. That's actually Murray Strauss's advice, is that couples in which there is violence should probably learn skills to manage their anger and improve their coping. Okay, that is the answer. But if you heard it from her, and again, this is like you were saying, Brian, there's no logic, there's no reason, there isn't. Now she's signaling. She signaled the porn coordinate. Now she's signaling the domestic violence coordinate. I would not be shocked if she signaled the incel coordinate at some point. What is she? Is she constructing an argument? No, she is constructing a position. That's it. Not a position as in like an argument, a position in an argument, just a position. She's just signaling membership. And then from there, she is signaling men's lack of membership in the human race. That's all she's doing. She's just like, okay, wow, they're trans women. But men look at porn. And also men engage in domestic violence against women. Therefore, trans women are bad.
Well, she also links all these things. So, like, porn leads to domestic violence, right?
I don't know. Was there a link? Well, I mean, there was. Is it? Okay.
I think that if you, well, she doesn't explicitly say it, but I think that if you see the way that she paints the picture, she's basically, it's like allowing herself enough plausible deniability so that if you say, oh, these things are linked and she can't make the case for it, she'll just say, oh, I didn't say that. But she doesn't have to, because the people in her audience that hear this, or mostly women, let's remind you, and the men who simp for them, they're going to say, oh yeah, porn, like they hear, trans women in dresses, pornography, domestic violence, rape, like whatever. So domestic violence is basically rape because it's like the same thing. Andrea Dworkin basically believes that all relationships between men and women are, power, defined by power differentials, and men have the power, and sex with a man is always rape. And yeah, even if you cornered somebody like Andrea Dworkin at the time, she would have probably, if it looked like it was going to make her feel like lose an argument, she would say, I didn't say that. But then it doesn't matter. She doesn't have to like explicitly say anything. She can just basically just correlate a bunch of stuff and then leave it there and let people figure it out for themselves and not actually say anything. And this is how they get away with this stuff. So Islam is lies says, is this a misandry stream? No, quite the opposite. But go ahead.
Yes.
It's a misogyny stream, actually.
Mm-hmm. You need to improve your ability to identify your isms, friend.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he just got here and
just
saw we were looking at this lesbian separatist on YouTube. So, all right, are we ready for more?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's almost over, so let's just finish it. There might not be anything left, but I'll go back a little bit. Okay. Separatist.
Look at what's happening, within the culture. And I think this kind of rhetoric around victim ideology, I just think that really is another silencing technique that is used to against women who want to actually discuss the realities of male violence.
Thank you.
So that immediately gets an applause. Didn't say anything of substance. I think this guy, the bald guy, I think he tuned out. He was like, "What is it?" His eyes glazed over.
Yeah, there is nothing.
Huh?
They're not going to start saying anything of substance now, not 50, 60 years in. And again,
No.
like none of this has any grounding whatsoever. I can't repeat this enough. None of this has any grounding. None of it. It
Yeah.
is all just someone's drunken ramblings on a napkin. That's it. That's what we're living in, guys. We're living in some woman had a dream once and woke up and she got really upset at her husband. That's as grounded as any of this is. Like, it's how did this happen? How did this woman happen? God damn. All right. It's been sort of a quiet day.
I mean, we got like 60 people watching.
Yeah.
And then on Rumble we have a few more. It's almost 70. But yeah, it's Friday, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah,
we can always.
So Islam is Lies just got here, so he's just saying, "Hey, I just got here. I don't know anything about this. I'll stick around." Yeah, we're almost. I think we're done or almost done because we just finished this video. But yeah, welcome to the stream.
Welcome.
Islam is Lies. So, all right.
All right. So,
anyway, so this is Big Shower Thoughts. I assume you put this through the machine.
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh.
Was there really anything like, was there anything that was in any way something that you could respond to in this?
I mean,
look,
I listened to it, but she
a lot of flapping.
She didn't say anything really. She doesn't she didn't say anything.
Like
Dylan, that's why you use a super chow instead. It won't get censored.
Yes,
don't
go
do
to
super chats, do
feedthebadger.com.
super chows. He's saying, "Oh, super chat doesn't let a lot of words and phrases through." Yeah, don't use it.
Yeah,
use
go to
super chow.
feedthebadger.com/just the tip. That's why we tell you to do that.
There's a link in the description.
Yeah, go there. I don't know. Okay, so this is yeah, this is basically they still are doing the same thing they did 50 years ago. They have no evidence. They have no actual empirical data that isn't cooked.
Oh, of course
God
not.
damn.
No. Why would you?
And now she's complaining about the outcome of her own belief system. Right?
Yeah.
What literally radical feminists said that men have a biological instinct to oppress women. The non-radical feminists took that, kept the universality of a biological observation, slapped on some socialization. No, it's men, they're socialized to do it in order to be able to get access to institutional policy, law, et cetera, et cetera. Because it's harder to say something like, half the human race is just biologically inferior. That doesn't go over well. But if you say that half the human race is socially inferior, it just so happens that it's 1-to-1 with their biology, so that every man is that way. We can't tell you how. And then you go forward with this, that masculinity is socialized and it's evil, and that men need to renunciate their masculinity and to be good people. And then some dudes eventually realize, oh, well, I never seem to be able to renunciate my masculinity enough. I never seem to be able to repent of being a man enough, why don't I get this albatross off my neck by identifying as a woman?
Mm-hmm.
Or a neuter. And for the first time in my life, I don't have to renunciate myself. I wonder where that came from. I wonder where that pressure came from.
Good question.
Hey, lady, I wonder. And of course, the Radfems don't like it because even though the, I don't even know what to call them, like regular feminists, feminists
Regular
and Radfems.
feminists?
Yeah, I'll just call them feminists. The regular feminists, even though they use this term that men want to oppress women, and they want it to have the power, like the power of a biological phenomenon. So 1-to-1 with every man, they don't have to explain the socialization of how that happens. See, the thing is that if you're going to get the power of a biological phenomenon, so the power is all men. Remember, they love to say, they all love to call out not all men, and they love to say it's all men, right? Well, that is a biological, that's biological explanatory power, right? And you cannot, if you're going to propose a social explanation or social phenomenon with that level of explanatory power, you need a mechanism, and they don't have one. So they are effectively doing the same things that Radfems do.
Mm-hmm.
Except they say that it's socialized. And then some men are taking them at their word. Oh, if it's socialized, then I can unsocialize. If masculinity is source of all evil, and I renunciate it and I become a woman, then I am no longer part of that group. This is just, like I said, this all derives from a freaking shower thought. Someone's stupid shower thought. Hey, I'm bored. Wow, my husband seems content in his job. I feel resentment towards that. He's making me dependent on him. That's oppression. That's it.
Yep.
That's the entire argument, guys. And the entire evidence for the entire argument. And from that, men have been laboring under this blood libel that they are somehow morally inferior that to women, that they are somehow responsible for the greatest possible evil in the world. And it all came from that. And of course, this woman's lecture is incoherent because the whole thing is incoherent. What it really is, what really boggles is how this became the central organizing force for the relationship between men and women for our frickin' society. How did this become it? Some woman's resentful shower thought. Some woman wakes up from a nap in which her husband was cheating on her. But suddenly, feminism. Suddenly, an institutional theory about how men and women relate. And it's everywhere, informing International Development Bank's policy. How did that happen? Like, is anybody else just sitting there like, what? Wait, that escalated? Jesus. How? Okay. I'm going to stop boggling because it's probably getting annoying. Anyway, if you would like to send us a message at any time after the show is over, do you want to like just call it a day?
Yeah, that's fine.
It's
Hour and a
quiet.
half's good. It's a bit quiet.
Yeah, okay. So if you want to send it, it's really surprising that nobody's sent any messages. That's unusual for you guys.
Yeah. I just got one. Great Indoors just sent through something for 5 and says, could you do the video with the lady in the purple blouse too? It's just over a minute long, taken from the same roundtable discussion. Was that like something that popped up at the end of the video?
I was working on the, and I would say well over 90%.
Hold on.
Well over 90% of those were.
Okay, let's find the. Do you have a link to the?
No, he's just gonna send it in and make us look for it. Here it is.
Okay.
One statement.
All right, here we go. Let's listen to this stupid.
Does this
argument as
explain
well.
anything?
I doubt it. I think it's just another dumb position. I'll just play. I'm gonna play the whole thing. It's a minute, okay?
One statement they were asked whether or not they agree with is it is wrong for women to have lots of sexual partners, but not men. 3% of boys aged 13 to 17 agreed with that statement. Just 3%. This was lower than for any other age group. And
3%. It is wrong. Let me. What's the question again? Let me
they
see.
were asked whether or not they agree with is it is wrong for women to have lots of sexual partners, but not men. 3% of boys aged 13 to 17 agreed with that statement.
3%. It is wrong. So
Okay.
basically, a very small minority of boys agreed with that statement. Okay.
Just 3%. This was lower than for any other age group and exactly the same as for boomers. One question they were asked was, if a man goes on a date and pays, it's fair for him to expect sex. Again, just 3% of teenage boys agreed with that statement, lower than for any other age group. Another question, heterosexual women only want to date the most attractive men. 18% of teenage boys agreed with that statement.
You got to pump those numbers up, boys.
Yeah.
33% of millennials did, and 22% of Gen Xers did. So if there is misogyny, if young boys are being radicalized online, it's certainly not showing up in their attitudes towards women. So I think the kids are all right.
Wait, I thought this was dumb. I mean, it's fine, I guess. It's pretty benign, to be honest.
Yeah, that
Like
seems
she's basically saying that like men, like was this in the same round table discussion? Did she get like raked over the coals for daring to think that that boys are okay? Like, just, okay. Okay, I played it. I don't really have anything to say
and
about
also,
it.
what's wrong with boys and men recognizing reality? Because you can see it in the general social survey. I'm sure that the UK isn't that much different than the US. And it's not necessarily most attractive, it's money. And it's gotten worse. And I can show you the evidence that women, as they gain access to the workplace, expect a higher income from the men they're willing to partner with. Like, this is black and white evidence from the general social survey. Like the increase in the number of men who are unmarried in the lowest income quartile has gone from like 94% of them were married like 100 years ago to something like 50% are married now.
Yeah.
So the average amount of income a woman expects in order to marry a man has increased year by year by year by year by year over the last century. And that is adjusted for inflation. So I don't see how you could call it misogyny for boys and men to recognize reality.
Yep.
But you're right, Brian, it was innocuous, and it's a good point. Right?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
it's the very least somebody's making that point, even though I would say the metric is ridiculous. Right? How about we ask these young women if boys and men are always consenting to sex? I think we'd get some real eye-popping numbers of young women who think that having a penis is consent to whatever they want to do to that man or boy. Like that's it. That's all they need. As you got a penis, you're consenting to everything. Doesn't matter. What horrible thing. Right? You passed out drunk, well, she'll shove a popsicle stick up your urethra, have her way with you. You'll spend the rest of your life peeing glass shards, but that's okay. You consented to it. You're a man. That has actually happened. It was one of the most horrific rape stories I've ever heard. I'll tell you that. And so essentially the female rapist, he was passed out drunk. He did not achieve an erection. So she shoved, I believe like a wooden stir stick or something up his penis. so that she could mount him. And in the process, it broke inside him.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he was never able to pee without agony again. And it's funny because that's not the only time I've heard that. So apparently there are women out there who are sharing tips about how to rape unconscious men. Okay, let's ask these questions of women and young women. Let's find this out. Like, let's ask some equivalent questions of young women. See where they lie in the rapey spectrum. Judging from the millennial shift, there are some serious skeletons in that closet that we haven't opened. But anyway, with that, sorry guys, that's probably the most horrible thing to end with. But if you would like to send a message, if you'd like to berate me for giving you horrible images, I mean, the thing is that people have this idea that women raping men is some kind of non-starter, or like it's something that's just, it's not a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. There's a lot of serious consequences to it. Plus, rapists are not nice people. They do shit like that. And it's probably not a good idea to allow young women to do shit like that to men, among other things. All right. So anyway, if you'd like to send a message, please send it to feedthebadger.com/justthetip. You can send it after the show is over. You guys have been pretty quiet today. I guess this hasn't been the most favored topic. But anyway, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. If you want to send those messages, very best way for you to send a tip and a message with that tip. And our support is live. So if you want to support the show, go to feedthebadger.com/support and put a few shekels in the hat. Everything is very much appreciated. It goes towards battling the people who want to lie about men. Let's just put it that way. Either they want to lie overtly by simply asserting things that they've never proven, like men have an instinct or are socialized to oppress women, or they want to lie by omission by not asking girls about their sexual behavior and attitudes towards men and boys. Either way, they're big, big liars. Liars, liars, pants on fire, right? And we're here trying to fight that. So if you would like to support it, feedthebadger.com/support. And finally, if you would like to join our community and hear more of what I have to say, or get updates on my travails, the adventures of attempting to locate any shred of empirical evidence for these women's assertions about men, then go to badgernation.online and join our community. All of this is in the low bar if you're interested. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to Brian. Right. So take us out.
All right. So if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we talked about on the show today, and share the video, because sharing is caring. Thanks so much for coming on this episode of Maintaining Frame, and we will talk to you guys in the next one. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.